What is happening, Magnusites? So during a live stream, I actually told everybody my history as a gamer. And someone was like, why don't you make a separate video on it? I was like, you know what? I am going to do that. So I'm going to give you my history as a gamer so you guys understand exactly who I am as a gamer, what I am as a gamer, where I came from as a gamer, and why there's certain things I know and why certain things I don't know, and why I'm still catching up with certain things. So it all began in the early 80s. That's when I got into gaming. The Atari 2600. My mom bought that for me and my brother, and I did nothing but play the Atari 2600 all the time. Okay, that was my first experience in gaming. There were other gaming systems at the time, but there weren't many, okay? And mostly everybody had Ataris. I had a homeboy whose mom bought him a Atari 5200. Yeah, he's a 52? Yeah, I think it's a 5200. And I had one homeboy who got everything as a kid. And he ended up having like the Atari 7200 or 7600. I forgot what it was, but that was like the top scale Atari. That one had the best graphics out of them all. Then came the Nintendo. The Nintendo Entertainment System, to be exact. Because I was a poor kid, ended up getting that game system like 2 or 3 years after everybody else. But I quickly caught up with playing those games. Super Mario Bros. The Adventures of Zelda. Zelda? Yeah, The Adventures of Zelda, right? That was what it was called? I can't remember. I'm trying to rattle off all these, but Zelda. Link. Okay? Mega Man. Alright? I could go on and on with the games that came out for the Nintendo. Okay? I was truly addicted to Nintendo. Like, I remember I would get punished and my mom wouldn't let me play Nintendo games. So the majority of Nintendo games I'm familiar with. The majority of them. You know what I mean? Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, Contra, you know, up, down, left, right. I came from that era. You get what I'm saying? After that, the system wars really began. Because there was the Sega Master System when we had Nintendo, but most people didn't have the Sega Master System. I had a homeboy that had it, but most people had Nintendo. And I remember Genesis came out. That was the next level. We went from 8-bit to 16-bit. That's when they really started talking about bits. You know what I'm saying? It was like, whoa, what is this? I saw Altered Beast on the TV. Oh, man. And, of course, I was still poor at that time. And I couldn't afford it. So I'm seeing all these people play the Sega Genesis. And I was a Nintendo fanboy at the time. You know, always reading Nintendo Power, getting Electronic Gaming Monthly in the mail. You know, I had a little paper out. So that would pay for those little things. It would pay for games that I wanted to buy. And then, lo and behold, my prayers were answered and Nintendo came out with Super Nintendo with Mode 7. If some of you remember that. That was when things would come at you through the screen and then come back down and all that stuff. Yeah. Man. My mom got that for me. Again, I was hooked. And all of their, games that were the hits in the last, in Nintendo, were the super versions of it. You know what I mean? So there was Super Contra and Super Double Dragon and, just all these others. Everything was super. And, man, all day, all night. And see, I was an introverted kid. I had my several small group of friends. It was maybe 3 or 4 people. And since I was introverted, because I wasn't very popular because I wasn't allowed to do nothing. I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness kid, and they were very strict religiously, and I just wasn't allowed to do a lot of things with people that weren't Jehovah's Witnesses. So I took to playing video games. So that was the only thing I could fucking do. You get what I'm saying? So I can't play with this guy, I can't play with this guy, I can't hang out with him, I can't hang out with him, can't do this, I can't do that, can't. I was in the house playing video games. That was my fun. You get what I'm saying? And I became very, very proficient at these games. And one day, my buddy tells me, there's a game called Street Fighter 2 is about to come out, man. It's going to be a hit. It's going to be such a... And I started to follow this in all the electronic gaming monthlies. I started to follow this game. And I started to kind of feel the hype that everyone else was feeling. And I would go to the Burlington Center, which was the Burlington Mall over here, and I would see it in the arcade. And I noticed everyone was putting their quarter on the screen and waiting their turn. So I started to do the same damn thing. And I would go whenever I got a chance to play. Always get my ass kicked. I wasn't very good at the control, the joystick, the stick. I'm not good at that. But a control pad, I was good at. That game came out, and I practiced, and I practiced, and I practiced, and I practiced. I brought all the strategy guys. I practiced the combos. I eventually fell in love with the Ryu character, and I became around town the dude to play in Street Fighter. Nobody could beat me except my friend James. My friend James was just as good, if not better than me sometimes. I eventually, though, surpassed James around the time that Street Fighter Alpha came out, which was for the PlayStation. Now, the PlayStation was the first game that I bought on my own. I was working at McDonald's at the time. I knew how much money I got every week, and I knew when the system was going to drop. I knew that trading in my cartridges along with my Super NES would give me this much credit, so I knew just as much how much money I needed to have that day to buy the PlayStation with Tekken as my first game. And I saved, and I took that bus with a transfer to the Burlington Mall, and I got it. And again, I'm in the house all day long, all night. And along the way, I came into a little bit of money, and I ended up getting the Sega Saturn. And I was super into fighting games still. Everything from Street Fighter 2, Mortal Kombat, all the way through to when they brought out the PlayStation, Tekken, Street Fighter Alphas, all that stuff. I was still playing them then. And if you wanted the best fighting game, you got it on the Saturn, especially if you could get it from Japan, because they were still porting a lot of stuff over that they weren't doing in America. So I had a special memory cartridge that got all the frames of animation. I ended up buying Marvel superheroes for that game, X-Men versus Street Fighter, man, playing with my homeboys all the time. Just, man, those were the days. And then around the time I started to kind of lose interest in video games, the Dreamcast came out. Now, before I speak about the Dreamcast, some of you wonder why I don't know about certain PlayStation games. I was so into Street Fighter, it was the only thing that I really played. I played Ridge Racer from time to time because I really liked Ridge Racer. I remember buying Rayman, Final Fantasy, was it 7 with Cloud? Loved that game. Loved it. Played that, beat it. By the time Resident Evil was dropping and Tomb Raider and stuff like that. And here's the thing. I had a love of side scrollers. I didn't really care for stuff like Virtua Fighter, the 3D stuff. I really didn't like it. Although I did like Tekken, and I did like Battle Arena Toshinden. And I remember buying the second one from Japan, having that one shipped over. I remember buying Tekken 2 from Japan, having that shipped over, because I got it like 6 months earlier than everybody else. But anyway, I was big on side scrollers. Okay, so when the whole 3D polygon thing was really happening, I didn't give a damn much about them, because I didn't like how they looked, and I didn't like that the gaming games were going that way. I didn't like it. I was almost a traditionalist in a way, you know what I mean? I just liked the old school side scrollers. So I didn't buy a lot of those things. I didn't buy any of them that were like that much. Even though, yeah, I know I bought, Final Fantasy VII. So there were certain ones I was okay with. But a lot of them I didn't like. So by the time Dreamcast came out, I ended up getting Soul Calibur. I think that was the only game I bought for it that I can remember. And after Dreamcast, I was really starting to lose, it for games. And I bought the GameCube just to see what Nintendo, was going to do. And I bought a WWE game for that one. I think it was their first WWE game for it. I remember loving that game, really mastering that game, creating my own character, kicking ass, loved it. But I think that was the only game I bought for it. Then I ended up buying a PlayStation 2, which is like the best-selling system of all time, but I was losing my love of gaming at that time. So I bought a PlayStation 2, and I think the only game I had for it was another wrestling game, because I was really into wrestling at the time. The Rock, Goldberg, Stone Cold, all that. I was really into wrestling at the time. So that's why I wanted to try to see what they had. My boys had told me that their games were good, but I only had a couple of things for it. And I didn't buy anything for a long time after that. Then Xbox 360 came out, and I got that because Street Fighter 4 was coming out. And I remember thinking, well, I got this, why don't I get PlayStation 3 just in case that's got some things that I want to play. And I got Ninja Gaiden 2 for it. Fell in love with Ninja Gaiden 2. Another Final Fantasy game I got, the one with the black dude with the afro, hit the chocobo chick in there. And there were like a couple other games that I bought. Tekken, another Tekken game, but I didn't play. I only played it a few times. Like, I still really wasn't into gaming, even though I had both of those. Then I become a successful YouTuber, and people are asking me to start gaming. I saw a trailer for Batman Arkham Knight, and I said, you know what? Let's get this. Let's get this system. By the way, I did buy the Arkham games earlier, though, for like PlayStation 3. I had played them on PlayStation 3, but I just hadn't played much else. You get what I'm saying? I'm missing all these other games, Uncharted, Tomb Raiders, and all these other games that, these Resident Evils and all these other games that I just don't know much about. I'm missing because I'm only playing games once in a while now. And I get the Arkham Knight, and that's when I start to play games again. And at this time, I'm a guy who has missed, think about it, I missed the launch of the most successful gaming platform to this date, the PlayStation 2. I missed it. I didn't give a damn about it. Think about this stuff. I wasn't gaming then. I missed hundreds of games that they made for that system. Hundreds of them. I missed the Xbox. I never had an Xbox before. So, I missed a total evolution of gaming. And by the time I started gaming had changed. There were no longer instruction booklets with the games. I remember buying games and you had the instruction booklets. I would read it before I would play. As much as I wanted to pop it in and play it, I wouldn't. I would read it first so I had an idea of how to play the game, and then I would start playing. Now that the game has built-in tutorials that, you know, you follow along, you know, most games do, and it shows you how to, you know, do what you need to do. So, and then, like, so here's where it comes to stuff this is the part where stuff I know and stuff I don't know. Jumping to levels, certain doors and keys and all this stuff. The way it was presented to me in the day that I used to play games like that was different than now. I specifically was talking about how people were talking shit about me when I was playing Uncharted. Like I didn't know where to jump. But in my day, when you had to jump to a ledge, you knew. Because it was like, it was a side scroller. And the next place you had to jump was another ledge. It's right there. But in stuff like Uncharted, where I'm starting to play games like this, I'm like, okay, I see a wall. What the fuck? The wall is so exquisitely and masterfully detailed. To me, as an old school gamer, it just looks like a wall. But to you who have been through all of these PlayStation 2, Xbox games, all this, you've been through all of this. You have been, what's the word? You've gotten used to how games function. And if something looks like a brick, to me, you're like, no, you have to grab that and climb. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, are you serious? I remember spending like a half hour trying to figure out where I needed to jump to. And it ended up being these bricks that I had to hold on to. I was like, oh my God. I was like, what? So I was like, God, this is such a something different. And that's just like one thing. You know what I mean? When I used to play games, there weren't tutorials on the screen. It wasn't all these damn things that would pop up and tell you what to do. So a lot of times when I'm playing, I'm looking at the action and I'm not paying attention to something that pops up in the right-hand corner. I'll just be looking at the action. And sometimes I'll miss things because it didn't happen back in the day all the time. You know what I mean? You had to talk to somebody to get instructions for something, like in role-playing games. But like I would just forget because it wasn't like that. You know what I mean? I was like, oh man. I was like, and then after a while I'll notice, I'm like, yeah, these messages keep popping up on the screen. Like, yeah, I should start reading them. You know what I mean? Like I'm just paying attention to what I'm doing rather than things that are popping up here and there. So that's just a couple other things. I've really had to get used to certain games and how they play and stuff like that. Now I'm pretty much, yeah, I'm pretty much caught up to speed on certain things. So now when you think to yourself, because you're not critically thinking, you're only assuming and you're just reacting. You know what I mean? You're having these knee-jerk reactions. How come he doesn't know what BO3 is? Because now you fucking know. Alright? I came from the old school and I retired midway. Alright? And then I came back. That's what it's all about. You know how they say, you'll talk to, you'll hear UFC commentators talking about how Bruce Lee was the greatest of all time and stuff like that, right? And they'll say, well, what would happen if Bruce Lee would have just, you woke him up, brought him back to life, and put him in an octagon? And they say, well, he would get beat, right? He would get beat. Because he hasn't been alive for the evolution of martial arts. But the motherfucker would learn fast, and he would get good. And that's why all motherfuckers see that when I play games that I really want to finish, I finish every single one of them. Even ones that the dudes that talk shit say they couldn't beat, I'm beating them. They're like, well, wait a minute, how come he couldn't do this on that level, but he beat Dark Souls and he beat Bloodborne? Because you dumbass, it's called practice. That's why. And I didn't know how certain games worked. I figured it out. Practice makes perfect, and you're able to beat shit. You know what I mean? Like, it's not too hard to figure that out. And stop falling for the shit where you think that gamers are just good. Okay? A lot of these guys get early versions of the games. They play them. They get good. Then they give you the gameplay of them when they're good. And you think that they're masters. Come on, kids. Think. Think. Alright? Anyway, post comments down below. Let me know what you all thought. That's my gaming history. And I plan on getting better. You know what I'm saying? And if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe, and share. 10 million subscribers! Woo! You may now subscribe.